The gavel didn't just fall, it shattered the silence. Mark Miller stared at Judge Maria Sanchez, his face a mask of disbelief. He had demanded this divorce. He had flaunted his mistress. He had offered his wife peanuts to disappear quietly. Mark wanted a new life, and he was about to get one. Just not the one he'd planned. Across the courtroom, his mistress, Chloe, was already inching her chair away from him, and the woman he had tried to discard, his wife Sarah, was looking directly at him. And for the first time in a decade, she was smiling. The silence in the Miller house had become a physical weight. It was a 3-bedroom colonial on a tree-lined street in suburban Connecticut, the kind of house that was supposed to radiate warmth and family. Instead, it felt like a museum, and Sarah Miller was its lonely curator. Their 15-year marriage had calcified. Mark Miller, once the ambitious, charming man she'd fallen for, had become a man of polite, cutting absences. He was the CEO of Green Tech Solutions, a B2B software company he'd built from scratch, or rather, as he always told it, he had built it. Sarah was just the supportive wife, the one who'd given up her promising graphic design career to manage the home front, the one who'd handled the endless networking dinners, remembering the names of partners' wives and children, the one who, in the early days, had balanced the books and designed the company's first logo when they couldn't afford a professional. But those days were long gone. Now, Mark communicated in brief, transactional texts. Late meeting. Don't wait up. Client dinner? Handle the HOA meeting. Forgot to tell you, flying to Chicago, back Thursday. This Tuesday was their 15th anniversary. Sarah had made reservations at L'Escalier, the restaurant where he'd proposed. She wore the blue dress he used to love. At 7 p.m. she was ready. At 8 p.m. she was drinking a glass of wine alone. At 9 p.m. her phone buzzed. Something came up. Rain check. Rain check, she whispered to their sleeping golden retriever Buster. He wants a rain check on 15 years. She knew, of course. The knowing had been a dull ache in her chest for 6 months. It started with the new, expensive shirts. Mark had never cared about fashion. Then came the sudden obsession with the gym, the scent of a different, floral perfume on his suit jacket, and the locked screen on his phone, which he now guarded like a state secret. Sarah wasn't a fool. She was just tired. She had confronted him 2 months ago. Mark, are you seeing someone? He had perfected the art of gaslighting. What? Sarah, that's insane. I'm working 80-hour weeks to provide this. He'd gestured around their expensive kitchen. I'm exhausted. The last thing I need is you being insecure and paranoid. God, is that what you do all day? Sit around and invent problems? He made her feel small. He made her feel guilty for questioning the very man who was betraying her. But the evidence was mounting. The credit card bill, which she still managed, showed charges she couldn't explain. Dinners at places he'd never take her. Hotel bars on nights he was supposedly at the office. And a recurring, significant charge from a high-end jewelry store, Boucheron. He hadn't bought her jewelry in 5 years. She had spent the last week in a cold, quiet dread, waiting for the axe to fall. She didn't have to wait long. Mark came home just after 11 p.m., not on Thursday, but on Wednesday night. He didn't look tired from a business trip. He looked energized, almost giddy. He dropped his keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, a bowl Sarah had made in a pottery class she took to fill the empty hours. Sarah, he said, walking into the kitchen where she was wiping down the already spotless counter. We need to talk. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Okay. He didn't sit. He leaned against the marble island, crossing his arms. It was a power pose. A CEO's pose. I'm not happy, Sarah. I haven't been for a long time. She gripped the counter, her knuckles turning white. I know things have been difficult, Mark. We can try therapy. We can— No, he cut her off, his voice flat. I'm done trying. I want a divorce. The words hung in the sterile air. Divorce. It was a word for other people, for messy, broken families, not for them. You want a divorce? Yes, and I want to be upfront with you. I've met someone. There it was. The abstract knowing was now a concrete fact. Who? She managed to ask, her voice a dry rasp. Her name is Chloe Jensen, he said, almost proudly. Well, she makes me feel alive. She's vibrant. She gets me. Vibrant. The word was a slap. It was everything he implied. Sarah was not. Dull. Stale. Old. So, Sarah said, a strange, cold calm settling over her. Chloe, that's where the Boucheron necklace went. Mark's eyes flashed with annoyance, not guilt. Don't do this, Sarah. Don't make this messy. You bought your mistress a necklace with our money and you're telling me not to make it messy? It's my money, he boomed, his voice echoing in the kitchen. I earned it. I built Green Tech. You were just here. The cruelty of it, the casual dismissal of her entire adult life, finally broke her paralysis. I was just here, while you were there. Look, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I've already had my lawyer, Jennifer Reed, draw up the papers. It's very generous. I'll give you a one-time payout, $200,000. You can keep your car. You'll have 60 days to find a new place. I'm keeping the house and the company, obviously. It's all in my name. It's just cleaner this way. He was liquidating her. 15 years of her life, $200,000. He was firing her from her own marriage. 60 days, she repeated numbly. Yes, Chloe and I are moving in. We want to start our life together. He actually smiled, a small, tight smile of relief. He had done the hard part. He had delivered the news. He turned and walked toward the stairs, toward their bedroom. Where are you going? She asked, her voice shaking with a rage so cold it surprised her. To pack a bag. I'm staying at the hotel until you're out, he said over his shoulder. My lawyer will send your lawyer the papers. Just get a lawyer, Sarah. Someone cheap. Don't try to fight this. You'll lose. He disappeared upstairs. Sarah stood rooted to the spot, the smell of lemon polish on her hands. He thought she was just a housewife. He thought she was just here. He thought she would lose. Mark Miller had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He hadn't just declared war on his wife. He had declared war on the woman who built his fortress. And she knew exactly where all the secret passages were. The first 48 hours were a blur of hollow-eyed shock. Sarah didn't cry. It was as if the betrayal was too profound for tears. She called her best friend, Beth, who was on her doorstep in 20 minutes with a bottle of whiskey and a look of righteous fury. He's keeping the house, Beth spat, pacing the living room. The house your grandmother's inheritance paid the down payment on? That sociopath. It's in his name, Beth, Sarah said, her voice monotone. Everything is. The mortgage, the company. I'm a spouse on paper. That's it. No, Beth said, stopping. No, I was there, Sarah. I remember you in your tiny apartment, 2 a.m., buried in spreadsheets. He was a bartender with a good idea. You wrote the business plan. You did the market research. You built his first website. Sarah looked up, a flicker in her eyes. He says I was just supportive. He's a liar, Beth said, her voice firm. And you, my friend, are going to find a lawyer who eats liars for breakfast, not someone cheap, someone expensive. The word expensive jolted Sarah. Mark had frozen their joint checking account. A notification had popped up on her phone that morning. This account is now under sole signature authority. He had left her with $500 in her personal savings account. He was strangling her financially to force her to accept his insulting offer. I can't afford expensive, Beth. He's cut me off. Beth smiled, a thin, dangerous smile. You can't. But your parents can. Call your dad, Sarah. Tell him what that monster has done, and then you're going to the attic. Sarah's parents were horrified. Her father, a retired accountant, was quiet on the phone, but she could hear his controlled fury. By the end of the day, $50,000 was wired into her personal account. The note on the transfer read, "For the war chest." The next day, she went to the attic. It was dusty, filled with forgotten Christmases and baby clothes she had packed away after they decided not to have children. Mark's decision. He was too busy. In the corner, under a plastic tarp, was her old life, her drafting table, her art supplies, and 3 plastic bins labeled MISC Tech. She pulled them out, blowing dust off the lids. Inside, old hard drives, towers from obsolete computers, and binders full of floppy disks. This was her archive, the ghost in Mark's machine. She spent the next 2 days in a fever. She bought a new laptop and a set of external drives that could read the old tech. And then she found it. An external hard drive from 2010. Label, GTS Final. She plugged it in. The drive whirred to life. And there it was. File, GreenTech, Business, Plan, vfinal.doc. Author, Sarah J. Miller. Timestamp, October 14th, 2010. It was all there. 80 pages of market analysis, 5-year projections, competitor research, and branding strategy. She opened another folder. Branding. Inside were the original Adobe Illustrator files for the logo GreenTech Solutions still used. She kept digging. She found another drive labeled GTS, Accounting, 2011-2013. She opened it. QuickBooks files, tax prep documents, payroll spreadsheets, all managed by her from this very house while Mark was out networking, i.e. drinking with potential clients. She found emails she had forwarded to her personal archive account, an old habit from her design days. From Mark Miller. Date, Jan 12, 2011. Subject, help. Sarah, the pitch deck is a disaster. The investors are laughing at the visuals. Can you do your design magic on it? I need it by 6 a.m. From Mark Miller. Date, June 4th, 2012. Subject, payroll nightmare. I don't understand this new tax code. Can you just handle the Q2 books? I'm swamped with the dev team. You're a lifesaver. She printed everything. She copied the hard drives. She created a meticulous, cross-referenced binder of evidence. He hadn't just built a company with her. He had built it on her. The next Monday, she walked into the offices of Harrison & Dunn. She wasn't there to see a junior associate. She was there to see David Harrison. Harrison was a legend in Connecticut family law. He didn't just win cases, he dismantled them. He was a quiet, older man in a perfectly tailored suit, with eyes that seemed to see everything. She sat in his mahogany-walled office and laid out her story. She was concise. She didn't cry. My husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, is the CEO of GreenTech Solutions. He has offered me $200,000. He says I was a housewife and contributed nothing. Mr. Harrison nodded, looking at her over his spectacles. And what do you say, Mrs. Miller? Sarah pushed the binder across the desk. I say I was an uncredited, unpaid co-founder. And I have the receipts. For the next hour, David Harrison was silent as he turned page after page. He looked at the business plan. He looked at the emails. He looked at the bank statement from 2009, showing a $150,000 transfer from her grandmother's estate directly to the escrow company for their house. Mark, who was broke at the time, was put on the deed out of love. Finally, Mr. Harrison closed the binder. He looked at Sarah. "Mrs. Miller," he said, a small, satisfied smile playing on his lips. "Your husband has a very aggressive lawyer, Jennifer Reed. She's all bark. We are going to be all bite." "What do we do?" Sarah asked. "Now we do two things. First, you're going to give me the login to that joint credit card account. My forensic team will find out who Chloe Jensen is and how much of your marital money he's been spending on her. This is called dissipation of marital assets, and judges loathe it. And second?" "Second," he said, steepling his fingers. "We let them be arrogant. We say nothing. We comply with all requests. We let Mr. Miller and Ms. Reed walk into that courtroom believing their own lie. We let them build their entire case on the wonderful, fragile, and utterly false assumption that you were just a housewife." For the next 3 months, Sarah lived in a state of suspended animation. She moved into a small, furnished apartment, leaving the sterile colonial house to Mark and his new life. Mark, true to his word, had Chloe Jensen move in within a week of Sarah leaving. Sarah knew because her friend Beth, who lived 3 streets over, accidentally drove by and saw a pink convertible in the driveway. Mark's arrogance was breathtaking. His lawyer, Jennifer Reed, sent a barrage of hostile letters. They were discovery requests, demands for Sarah's financial statements, all laced with the condescending assumption that she had nothing to show. Mr. Harrison's advice was simple. We comply, fully. We give them every bank statement, every receipt. We have nothing to hide. They, on the other hand, are hiding everything. While Ms. Reed was busy trying to prove Sarah had spent $200 on a spa day in 2019, Mr. Harrison's forensic accountant, a quiet woman named Dr. Evelyn Hayes, was waging a different kind of war. Dr. Hayes was a digital bloodhound. She followed the money, and Mark, blinded by love and hubris, had left a trail of breadcrumbs a mile wide. The first major discovery was Chloe Jensen. She wasn't just some girl he'd met. She was a 26-year-old influencer whom Mark had met when she was hired to do a short-lived social media campaign for Green Tech. Dr. Hayes compiled a report. It was chilling in its detail. "Mr. Miller isn't just funding a lifestyle," Mr. Harrison explained, sliding the report across the conference table to Sarah. "He's funding a business. Hers." The report detailed 1. Leased for Chloe, paid for from the Green Tech marketing and expenses account. 2. A $6,000 a month apartment in downtown Hartford, leased for Chloe 3 months before Mark asked for the divorce, paid for, again, by Green Tech. 3. Over $120,000 in charges on a corporate Amex card given to Chloe, Chanel bags, trips to Cabo, dinners at Nobu. "He's been embezzling," Sarah whispered, horrified. "Not technically," Mr. Harrison said. "Since he's the sole owner on paper, he's just spending company money. But it's marital property. He is actively and deliberately dissipating the marital estate to fund his affair. As I said, judges find this distasteful." But Dr. Hayes wasn't done. She had found something else. Something buried deep in the Green Tech servers, which Mark had foolishly failed to lock his housewife out of. "Your husband's company is in trouble, Mrs. Miller," Harrison said, his tone serious. "What?" "But he just landed the Patterson deal." "He did, but he's been so distracted by Ms. Jensen, that he's been making catastrophic business errors. He's been using company funds as his personal piggy bank. He's over-leveraged. He took out a massive line of credit against the company's assets to fund his expansion and his girlfriend." Dr. Hayes had found a series of panicked emails between Mark and Richard, his CFO. From Richard. Subject: urgent. Q3 cash flow. Mark: we can't sustain this level of consulting payouts to CJ Holdings. Chloe's Sham LLC. We are going to miss payroll if we don't land the next round of funding. From Mark. Subject: urgent. Handle it, Rich. That's what I pay you for. Don't question my expenses. Mark was a ship sinking, and he was drilling holes in the hull to impress a passenger. What does this mean for me? Sarah asked. It means his generous $200,000 offer isn't just an insult, Harrison said. It's likely all he thinks he can afford to give you without blowing up his own life. He's trying to get you out before the whole house of cards comes down. So, the company's worthless? Sarah felt a pang of despair. The company she had helped build. Not at all, Mr. Harrison smiled. It's mismanaged. Terribly. But the core technology, the code, the part you helped strategize, is incredibly valuable. It just needs a competent hand on the tiller. Someone who isn't spending its profits at Chanel. The strategy shifted. They weren't just going for alimony. They weren't just going for the house. We are going for the company, Mrs. Miller, Harrison said. It is as much yours as it is his. In fact, given your initial, documented contributions and his recent, documented destruction, one could argue it's more yours. The final piece of the puzzle was the house. Ms. Reed, on Mark's behalf, was adamant. The house was in Mark's name. It was his. Mr. Harrison sent a single document to her office. It was a certified bank statement from Sarah's deceased grandmother's estate, showing the wire transfer of $150,000 and a copy of the closing statement for the house, showing a $150,000 down payment. Ms. Reed's office was silent for 3 days. The inevitable next step was a mandatory settlement conference. Mediation. It was the last chance to settle this before it went to a full, public trial. They'll be nervous now, Harrison warned Sarah as they rode the elevator up. Ms. Reed knows she has a problem with the house. She'll try to bully you on the company. Stay calm. Say nothing. Let me talk. They walked into the sterile conference room. Mark was there, looking tanned and arrogant in a $3,000 suit. Beside him sat Jennifer Reed, a shark in a pinstripe skirt. And shockingly, sitting in the corner like she belonged there, was Chloe Jensen. She was texting, sipping a latte, and wearing a diamond tennis bracelet that Sarah knew must have cost $30,000. She was there as an intimidation tactic. See? I've already won. I'm the new Mrs. Miller. Mark wouldn't even look at Sarah. Mr. Harrison, Jennifer Reed began, her voice dripping with false congeniality. My client is prepared to be extremely generous to avoid the unpleasantness of a trial. He is willing to raise his offer to $350,000, a clean break, plus he will no longer contest her keeping her vehicle. Mark smirked, checking his watch. Mr. Harrison simply opened his briefcase. He pulled out a single, 20-page thick document. This is a courtesy copy, he said, sliding it across the table. My client is not interested in $350,000. Reed's eyes narrowed. She flipped open the cover. Report on dissipation of marital assets. Miller versus Miller. She read the first page. Her professionally pleasant expression didn't just fade, it collapsed. She saw the G-Wagon. She saw the condo lease. She saw the $120,000 Amex bill. She snapped the report shut. These are business expenses. Ms. Jensen is a marketing consultant. Chloe actually looked up from her phone, a smug look on her face. That's right. I'm his brand strategist. Mr. Harrison leaned forward. A brand strategist? Fascinating. And does your strategy include $14,000 for a single weekend at the St. Regis in Cabo, charged to a company on the brink of missing payroll? Because my forensic accountant, Dr. Hayes, found that, and the corresponding business photos on your public Instagram. Chloe's face went white. Mark shot to his feet. This is an outrage. You have no right. You have no right, Mr. Miller. Harrison's voice was suddenly steel. To defraud your wife. You have systematically looted the marital estate to the tune of, by our current estimate, $245,000. And that's just what we've found so far. Jennifer Reed was frantically doing math on her legal pad. She looked at Mark, her eyes flashing fury. He had lied to her. What do you want? Reed snapped it. My client wants what she is owed, Harrison said calmly. She wants 100% ownership of the house, which her separate property paid for. She wants permanent, significant alimony. She wants her legal fees paid. And she wants 50% of Green Tech Solutions after Mr. Miller repays the $245,000 he stole from it. Mark laughed, a high, thin, terrified laugh. 50%. The company is me. She'll get nothing. We'll see you in court. I'll drag this out until she's broke. Mark, sit down, Reed hissed. No, I'm done. This is over. See you in court, Sarah. You'll regret this. He grabbed Chloe by the arm and stormed out of the room. Jennifer Reed slowly packed her briefcase. She looked at Harrison. You've made a terrible mistake. He'll bury her in appeals. No, Ms. Reed, Harrison said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. You made the mistake. You believed your client. You never for 1 second bothered to find out who my client is. He turned to Sarah. It's time. We're going to trial. The months leading up to the trial were a descent into legal trench warfare. Mark, furious and cornered, was true to his word. He filed motion after motion, trying to bleed Sarah dry. His new legal strategy, crafted by the now desperate Jennifer Reed, was to paint Sarah as a vindictive, gold-digging spouse. They subpoenaed her friend Beth. They tried to depose her elderly parents. They filed a motion to have Mr. Harrison's illegally obtained financial report on Chloe thrown out. The judge, a no-nonsense, 60-year-old woman named Maria Sanchez, denied it. It's a corporate card, counsel. There's no expectation of privacy. Motion denied. Sarah, meanwhile, was changing. The fog of her old life was lifting. With every new, desperate attack from Mark, she felt her spine harden. She was no longer just the curator of a sad museum. She was preparing for a hostile takeover. She wasn't just relying on Mr. Harrison. She was working with him. She spent her days at the law library and her nights with Dr. Hayes, the forensic accountant. She wasn't just the wife. She was the lead strategist on her own case. He's moved more money, Sarah said one evening, pointing to a new bank statement. He's created a new shell LLC, MJM Holdings. He's trying to transfer the company's intellectual property, the source code, into it. He's trying to leave the original Green Tech a hollowed-out shell and start over. He's smarter than I thought, Harrison murmured. But he's not, Sarah said. He's using the same lawyer who filed his shell company for Chloe. The paperwork is identical. He's sloppy. And he backdated the transfer. But the IP address on the digital signature is from the St. Regis in Cabo, from his business trip with Chloe. Harrison looked at her, truly impressed. Mrs. Miller, you found the kill shot. He's committing fraud on his investors and on this court. The day of the trial finally arrived. The courtroom was small, panelled in dark wood. Sarah sat beside Mr. Harrison, her hands folded calmly in her lap. She wore a simple, dark blue suit. She looked like a professional. Mark, Ms. Reed, and their team of junior lawyers took up the other table. Mark looked stressed. His tan had faded, and he had dark circles under his eyes. Running a company? Managing a high-maintenance mistress and fighting a legal war on 3 fronts was taking its toll. In the back row, a public gallery, sat Chloe Jensen. She was in a bright pink dress, chewing gum and looking bored. She was there to be Mark's trophy, to show the court what he had won. Judge Sanchez entered, and the room snapped to attention. "Ms. Reed, you may begin," the judge said, her voice flat. Jennifer Reed's opening statement was exactly what they expected. She painted a picture of Mark Miller as a lone genius, a titan of industry who had single-handedly built a tech empire. And Sarah? Sarah Miller was his wife. She supported him, as any wife would. She enjoyed the fruits of his labor, the house, the cars, the vacations. But it was his labor. Now, after 15 years, as the marriage unfortunately breaks down, she sees a payday. She is attempting, through this court, to seize control of a company she knows nothing about. This is not a division of assets, Your Honor. It is corporate raiding, dressed as a divorce. It was a powerful narrative. Sarah felt the sting of it. Then Mr. Harrison stood up. He was calm, almost professorial. "Your Honor," he began, "we agree on one point. This is not a simple divorce. It is about a corporation, a partnership, one that began not in 2011, when Green Tech Solutions was incorporated, but in 2009, in a small apartment, with 2 people. My client, Sarah Miller, and the man she would later marry. Ms. Reed's narrative is compelling, but it is fiction. We will prove, with documented, time-stamped evidence, that Sarah Miller was not just supportive. She was foundational. She was the company's first strategist, its first designer, and its first financial controller. We will also prove that Mr. Miller, far from being a lone genius, has spent the last year systematically and illegally looting this marital partnership to fund an extravagant lifestyle with his mistress. This isn't a payday, Your Honor. It's a reckoning. The air in the courtroom crackled. Judge Sanchez looked at Harrison, then at Mark, her expression unreadable. "Call your first witness, Ms. Reed." I call Mark Miller to the stand. Mark Miller walked to the stand with a practiced, confident stride. He was in his element. He was a CEO. He knew how to sell, how to command a room. He smiled reassuringly at Judge Sanchez. Jennifer Reed led him through his story. It was the same one he'd been telling for years, the one he'd come to believe himself. "Mr. Miller, tell us about the founding of Green Tech Solutions." "Well," Mark began, "I had this idea back in 2010, a new way to handle B2B logistics. I worked out of my garage for 18 hours a day. It was grueling. I bootstrapped the entire thing myself." "And what was Mrs. Miller's role in this? Did she help with the company?" "Sarah? Oh, she was great. She brought me coffee, made sure I ate. You know, supportive wife stuff. She was always proud of me. But business? No, that was all me. She doesn't have the head for it." Sarah sat perfectly still, her eyes fixed on her husband. He delivered the line without a hint of irony, a casual, devastating lie. "And the house," Reed continued. "Who purchased the marital home?" "I did. I bought it in 2009, just before we got married. I wanted to provide a home for us. So the down payment came from you?" "Yes." "My savings." Mr. Harrison made a small note on his legal pad. For an hour, Reed built her case. Mark the provider, Sarah the beneficiary. When she was finished, Mark looked supremely confident. He'd nailed it. "Mr. Harrison, your witness," Judge Sanchez said. David Harrison walked slowly to the podium. He shuffled his papers, a harmless old man. "Mr. Miller, you stated you founded Green Tech all by yourself. Is that correct?" "Yes, absolutely." "And that your wife doesn't have the head for business?" "She's an artist," Mark said with a condescending shrug. She's creative. But no, she's not a business person. Right. Harrison pulled a thick, bound document from his briefcase and had it marked as Exhibit A. Your Honor, this is an 80-page document, time-stamped October 14th, 2010. Mr. Miller, can you identify it for the court? Mark squinted at the cover page. His smile faltered. It looks like a business plan, he stammered. Indeed it does, Harrison said. It's the original business plan for Green Tech Solutions, the very one you used to secure your first round of angel funding. Can you please read the name listed under author? Mark's blood drained from his face. He was silent. Read it, Mr. Miller. Sarah J. Miller, he whispered. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Sarah J. Miller, he said, his voice cracking. So, the foundational document for your entire company, the one you said you bootstrapped, was written by your artistic wife? She helped type it up, Mark fumbled. The ideas were mine. Were they? Harrison moved to Exhibit B. This is a set of original Adobe Illustrator files, dated September 2010. They are they not, the logo for Green Tech Solutions. The same logo you use today? I guess. And who is the creator of these files, Mr. Miller? Sarah Miller. And Exhibit C, Harrison continued, his voice picking up speed, becoming a relentless drumbeat. A series of emails. Here's one from you to my client, dated January 12, 2011. Sarah, the pitch deck is a disaster. Can you do your design magic? And another, June 2012. I don't understand this new tax code. Can you just handle the Q2 books? Did you send these emails, Mr. Miller? Mark was visibly sweating. It was a long time ago. I don't recall. You don't recall your wife acting as your unpaid CFO and Chief Creative Officer for the first 3 years of your company's existence? That's a lie. She was just helping out. Objection. Reed shot up. Counsel is characterizing. Sustained, Judge Sanchez said, but she was staring at Mark. Answer the question, Mr. Miller. Was your wife handling your books, yes or no? For a time. A short time. Thank you. Harrison turned a page. Now, let's talk about the house. You testified under oath that you paid the down payment from your savings. I did. Mr. Miller, in 2009, what was your occupation? I was in transition. I was bartending while I got the company off the ground. And what were your total savings as a bartender in a transition? I don't remember. Let me help. Harrison produced Exhibit D. This is your 2009 W-2 from the Keg and Barrel and your bank statements. Your total income was $28,000. Your savings account had well on $200. Is that correct? Mark was silent. He looked at his lawyer, who was staring down at her pad, refusing to meet his eye. Mr. Miller? Yes. Then how? Harrison asked, his voice soft but deadly. Did you make $150,000 down payment on your house? Mark stared, trapped. Allow me, Harrison said, producing Exhibit E. This is a certified bank statement from the estate of one Martha Jensen, my client's grandmother. It shows a wire transfer for $150,000 directly to the title company for your home. Your name isn't on this account, is it, Mr. Miller? No. So, you lied to this court, under oath. Your wife didn't just not have a head for business. She was your business. And she didn't just live in your house. She bought it. Harrison turned to the judge. We are not done, Your Honor. Mr. Miller, Harrison continued, his voice sharp. Let's discuss Ms. Chloe Jensen. You called her a brand strategist? In the back row, Chloe sat up, a smug smile on her face. A strategist, Harrison repeated, producing Exhibits F, G, and H. Is a $75,000 G-Wagon, a $6,000 a month condo, and a $120,000 Amex bill for Chanel and Cabo. Trip's a standard perk for your consultants." "Objection," Reed yelled. "This is irrelevant." "It is theft, Your Honor," Harrison countered. "Dissipation of the marital estate." Judge Sanchez overruled the objection. In the back row, Chloe's smile vanished. She began texting furiously, her face pale. "Now, for the final piece," Harrison said. "An LLC called MJM Holdings. Are you familiar with it?" This was the kill shot. Mark's face went ashen. "A holding company," Harrison pressed, "created 3 months ago. An entity into which you attempted to transfer your company's proprietary source code for $1. Is that correct?" "That's strategic reorganization," Mark stammered. "Is it? Or was it fraud, an attempt to hide your most valuable asset from this court? A shell company, I might add, that you signed the papers for while on your business trip to Cabo with Miss Jensen?" Mark was speechless. He had no lies left. "You have perjured yourself, Mr. Miller. No further questions." Jennifer Reed, looking sick, whispered, "No redirect." "Mr. Miller, you may step down," the judge said. Mark stumbled from the witness box, a broken man. He looked desperately to the back row, but Chloe was already standing. She gathered her designer handbag and, without a single glance in his direction, walked quickly out of the courtroom. She was gone. The click of the courtroom door closing was the only sound, sealing his fate. The air in the courtroom was so thick with tension, it was difficult to breathe. Mark Miller sat shell-shocked, his eyes fixed on the empty space in the back row where Chloe had been. Her abandonment was a physical blow, a betrayal so swift and total it had left him reeling, unable even to process the legal catastrophe that had just unfolded. Judge Maria Sanchez looked down at the 2 legal teams. "Mr. Harrison has rested his case. Ms. Reed, do you have any rebuttal witnesses?" Jennifer Reed, who had been staring at her legal pad as if it held the answers to the universe, looked up, her face a mask of professional damage control. "No, Your Honor. The defense rests." "Very well," the judge said, her voice flat. "Then we will move to closing statements. Ms. Reed, you may begin." This was it. Jennifer Reed's last chance. She stood, buttoning her jacket, and walked to the center of the floor. She had to pivot. The facts were a disaster. Her only remaining play was emotion and fear. "Your Honor," she began, her voice resonating with forced sincerity, "what we have seen here today, what Mr. Harrison has so skillfully painted, is a marriage that has, undeniably, fallen apart. There has been acrimony. There have been errors in judgment on both sides." David Harrison raised an eyebrow. "On both sides." "But," Reed continued, her voice rising, "this court is not just dividing a house. It is deciding the fate of a multi-million-dollar corporation, Green Tech Solutions, which employs over 80 people in this state. Mr. Harrison would have you believe that because my client, Mark Miller, made personal mistakes, he is incompetent to run the company he built from the ground up." She gestured toward Mark, who was trying to look suitably humble and wronged. "He is Green Tech Solutions," she declared. "He is the engine. He is the rainmaker. He is the mind that has driven its success. To give control of this complex, high-tech firm to Mrs. Miller, a woman who, by her own admission, has not held a formal job in 15 years, would not be justice. It would be a death sentence for the company. It would kill the golden goose. It would punish the employees, the shareholders, and yes, even Mrs. Miller herself. This is not justice. This is spite. We ask the court to see past the personal drama and rule for a clean break, one that preserves the asset at the heart of this matter." She had done her best, painting Sarah as a vindictive, unqualified housewife who would burn down the kingdom just to get the keys. Judge Sanchez nodded, her face unreadable. "Thank you, counsel." "Mr. Harrison." David Harrison stood. He didn't walk to the center. He remained at his podium, a pillar of calm. "Your Honor," he began, his voice quiet, drawing the room in. "Ms. Reed argues that my client is unqualified. The evidence proves the opposite. Mrs. Miller was qualified to write the original 80-page business plan that secured the company's first funding. She was qualified to design the corporate logo it still uses today. She was qualified to manage the company's books and payroll for its first 3 years, acting as its unpaid CFO. He looked over at Mark. The only person in this room who has proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, to be unqualified is Mr. Miller. He has proven he is not qualified to manage his fidelity. He has proven he is not qualified to manage his finances, having dissipated nearly $250,000. And he has proven he is not qualified to be the steward of a major corporation, having committed active fraud and perjury in an attempt to hide its most valuable assets. He paused, letting the words hang. "Ms. Reed," he said, "is worried about killing the golden goose. We are worried about the fox who is already in the henhouse, eating the goose alive. Mr. Miller is not the engine, Your Honor. He has become the anchor, dragging this entire marital estate to the bottom of the ocean. This case is not about spite. It is about preservation. Preservation of an asset from the man who is actively trying to destroy it. We ask that this court restore the company to the partner who built it, not the one who pillaged it." He sat down. The silence that followed was absolute. Judge Sanchez looked at the clock. "I have heard the testimony. I have reviewed all 12 exhibits. This is a complex ruling with significant ramifications. The court will recess for 1 hour." She banged the gavel. "All rise." The moment the judge left the bench, the room exploded in frantic whispers. Mark Miller shot up and rounded on Jennifer Reed. "What was that? You let him call me a liar, a thief. Why didn't you stop him?" "Stop him!" Reed hissed, her professional veneer gone, her voice a low snarl of pure contempt as she slammed her files into her briefcase. "You are a liar, you idiot. You lied to me. You told me she was a housewife. You told me you bought the house with your savings, your $1,200 savings. You handed them the gun and they shot you between the eyes. Don't you dare blame me for this. You're lucky I didn't walk out." Mark recoiled, stunned. He looked desperately around the room, as if searching for an ally. He saw only the stern face of the bailiff. He was utterly, completely alone. Across the aisle, Sarah was breathing, deeply and slowly. "What happens now?" she whispered to Harrison. "Now, we wait," he said, patting her hand. "The evidence is ironclad, Sarah. A judge's ruling is never guaranteed, but Judge Sanchez is a fair woman, and she is not a fool. She saw exactly who was telling the truth." They walked out into the sterile courthouse hallway for the recess. Mark, his face pale and blotchy, spotted Sarah. He made a move toward her, a look of pure desperation on his face. Harrison stepped slightly in front of her. "Sarah," Mark pleaded, his voice cracking. "Sarah, please, we can still fix this. Don't let her ruin us. It's our company. Ours. I'll give you 50%. A true 50-50 split. We can run it together, just like the old days. Please, tell him to stop. Tell him to go back in there and accept the 50% deal. He was negotiating. After everything, after the lies, the mistress, the perjury, he was negotiating. He didn't see a wronged woman. He saw an opponent in a business deal he was losing." Sarah looked at the man she had loved for 15 years. the man she had built a life with, and who had tried to discard her for $200,000. She saw no remorse in his eyes, only terror. He wasn't apologizing for the betrayal. He was trying to get out of the consequences. "You still don't get it, do you, Mark?" she said, her voice devoid of heat, devoid of everything but a profound, sad finality. "You ruined us. There's nothing left to fix. You weren't offering me 50% yesterday. You weren't even offering me 1%. You were offering me humiliation. The old days are gone. You burned them down." She turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the hallway, a king in his $3,000 suit, ruling over an empire of ash. The hour passed like a lifetime. All rise. Judge Sanchez re-entered the courtroom and sat. She opened the case file, put on her glasses, and looked over them, first at Mark, then at Sarah. "In my 20 years on the bench," she began, her voice resonating with cold authority, "I have seen contentious divorces. I have seen financial disputes. But rarely have I seen such a brazen, calculated, and frankly insulting attempt to defraud a partner and this court." She leveled her gaze at Mark. "Mr. Miller, your testimony was not just inconsistent. It was a comprehensive fabrication. You sat on that stand, under oath, and you lied. You lied about your company's founding. You lied about your home's purchase. You lied about your finances. You perjured yourself. This court does not take perjury lightly. Your counsel's argument that you are the engine of this company is noted. But the evidence shows you have become the saboteur." Mark had shrunk in his chair. Jennifer Reed was staring at the table, already disassociating from her client. "This court's duty is to find an equitable distribution." Equitable, Mr. Miller, does not mean equal. Not when one party has acted in such egregious bad faith. My ruling is as follows. The evidence is undisputed. Exhibit E, the bank transfer from Mrs. Miller's grandmother's estate, proves a $150,000 separate property contribution was used for the down payment. Mr. Miller's testimony that he paid this from his savings of $1,200 was, to put it mildly, laughable. The court awards the marital home, free and clear, 100% to Mrs. Sarah Miller. Mr. Miller will vacate the premises within 48 hours. Sarah closed her eyes, a single tear of relief rolling down her cheek. The court finds that Mr. Miller illegally diverted, by his own admission, $245,000 of marital funds to his mistress, Ms. Chloe Jensen. The G-Wagon, the condo, the vacations, the fraudulent consulting fees. These are not business expenses. They are theft from the marital estate. Mr. Miller is hereby ordered to repay that full amount, $245,000, back to the marital estate, effective immediately. This is a non-dischargeable personal debt. You spent it, Mr. Miller. You will repay it. A low, strangled sound escaped Mark. He didn't have that kind of cash. He'd spent it all. This is the heart of the dispute. Ms. Reed argues Mrs. Miller is unqualified. The evidence, Exhibits A, B, and C, proves she was not just a founder. She was the founder. She wrote the map. Mr. Miller, you were the salesman. A salesman is useless without a product. Your recent actions, your gross mismanagement, and your active fraud have proven you are no longer a competent steward of this asset. An equal 50-50 split, the judge continued, would be a disservice. It would chain Mrs. Miller, the innocent party, to the very man who defrauded her. It would be untenable. The judge looked directly at Mark, her eyes like chips of ice. Therefore, this court finds that an equitable distribution requires a controlling interest be given to the partner who has proven to be its responsible founder. The court awards 65% of Green Tech Solutions to Mrs. Sarah Miller. The sound Mark made was a strangled, wet choke. He lunged forward as if to stand, and Jennifer Reed had to physically put a hand on his chest to hold him down. "Mr. Miller," the judge continued, ignoring the outburst, "will retain a 35% minority stake. This stake will be non-voting. He is hereby removed as CEO, as an officer of the corporation, and from the board of directors, effective immediately. His access to all company accounts, buildings and servers is revoked as of this moment." It was a complete and total annihilation. The shell company, MJM Holdings, is a clear instrument of fraud. It is hereby ordered dissolved. All assets transferred to it, including the company's proprietary source code, are returned to GreenTech Solutions, effective immediately. And finally, given Mr. Miller's perjury, his fraud, and his scorched earth legal tactics, he will pay for all of Mrs. Miller's reasonable legal and forensic accounting fees. Further, due to the extreme financial and professional harm he inflicted, he will pay spousal support of $10,000 per month for a period of 7 years. Judge Sanchez took a breath and looked at the broken man at the defendant's table. "Mr. Miller, you demanded this divorce. You wanted a new life. You are free to pursue it. But you will do so with nothing but the clothes on your back, a 35% non-voting stake in a company you no longer control, and the staggering personal debts you have incurred. This court is adjourned." The gavel struck the wood. The sound was like a cannon shot in the small room. For a full 30 seconds, no one moved. Mark Miller was catatonic, staring at the judge's empty chair. Sarah let out the breath she felt she had been holding for 15 years. It was shaky, ragged. She turned to David Harrison, tears of relief and shock streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick. "Thank you." "You did the work, Mrs. Miller," Harrison said, a rare, warm smile on his face. "You just needed the right tools, and you had the receipts." Across the room, Jennifer Reed snapped her briefcase shut. She looked at her client with pure, unadulterated contempt. "Don't call my office," she snarled. "I'll be billing you for today, and I expect to be paid." She turned on her heel and stormed out of the courtroom, leaving Mark utterly alone. Sarah and Harrison stood and began to walk toward the exit. As they passed his table, Mark looked up. His face was a terrifying mask of disbelief, rage, and bottomless desolation. He didn't speak. He couldn't. The man who had commanded boardrooms with his booming voice was rendered mute. The finality of his ruin had stolen his words. Sarah didn't stop. She didn't look back. She walked out of the courtroom, David Harrison at her side, and into the bright sunlight of the courthouse atrium. It was the first time she had felt warm in a year. "What now?" Harrison asked, adjusting his tie. Sarah took a deep breath. The shaky, tearful woman from the courtroom was gone. In her place was a CEO. She pulled out her phone, her hands perfectly steady. She scrolled past the dozens of missed calls from her friend Beth and her parents. She found the number she was looking for, the direct line to the man who had been sending panicked emails for months. The call connected on the first ring. "Richard, this is Sarah Miller." "Mrs. Miller! Sarah!" The man's voice was frantic. Is it over? We're all on pins and needles here." "Mark. He hasn't answered his phone all day. It's over, Richard," Sarah said, a small iron smile touching her lips as she pushed open the heavy glass doors of the courthouse. "As of 10 minutes ago, I am the new majority owner and CEO of GreenTech Solutions. I need you to do 3 things for me, immediately." "Yes, anything, Mrs. Miller. Ma'am. First, call IT. Revoke all of Mark's access. Servers, email, keycards, everything. As of this second. Second, freeze his corporate Amex and all company expense accounts. Third, call building security. Have them meet me at Mr. Miller's office. He is no longer with the company and is not to be permitted on the premises. She paused, stepping onto the sidewalk, and hailed a cab. And Richard? Schedule an all-hands emergency meeting for 3 p.m. It's time to get this company back on track. We have a lot of work to do. In the end, Mark's arrogance cost him everything. He tried to trade his 15-year marriage for a new model, and in the process, he was left with nothing but the bill for his own betrayal. Sarah Miller, the quiet wife he thought he could discard, proved that silence is not weakness. It's the patience of a woman gathering her receipts. She didn't just win the house, she won the company she helped build from the ground up. Mark was last seen trying to get a job as a regional sales manager. Chloe's Instagram went private. And Sarah? She just led Green Tech Solutions to its most profitable quarter in history. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well, it's taking back everything you're owed, with interest. In the end, Mark's arrogance cost him everything. He tried to trade his 15-year marriage for a new model, and in the process, he was left with nothing but the bill for his own betrayal. Sarah Miller, the quiet wife he thought he could discard, proved that silence is not weakness. It's the patience of a woman gathering her receipts. She didn't just win the house, she won the company she helped build from the ground up. Mark was last seen trying to get a job as a regional sales manager. Chloe's Instagram went private. And Sarah? She just led Green Tech Solutions to its most profitable quarter in history. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't just living well, it's taking back everything you're owed, with interest. What did you think of Mark's shocking downfall? Let me know in the comments. And for more stories of dramatic justice and incredible real-life twists, don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel.